Joan Risch was born in 1930. In 1940, her parents died in what was later described as a suspicious fire. In 1956 she married a co-worker named Martin Risch, and left work to raise a family with him. The couple had 2 children, a boy and a girl. They moved to Boston in 1961. On the morning of October 24th, Martin Risch got up early and left the house in his car to catch a flight to New York City. It was a business trip with the intention of staying overnight in Manhattan. Shortly after his departure, Joan woke the children and served them breakfast. She took her son across the street to the house of a neighbor, Barbara Barker, and left with her daughter in her car for an appointment with a dentist. Milk and mail were delivered to the family home while she was absent. Neither the milkman nor postman reported anything unusual at the residence when questioned later. After picking up her son at the Barkers, Joan and the children returned home at roughly 11:15 a.m. Joan changed from the clothing she had worn to the dentist's appointment into a blue house dress and white sneakers. Joan made lunch for her children and put her son into his room for his afternoon nap. At 1 p.m., Barbara Barker, the neighbor, brought her son over to play with Joan's daughter. During the time they were there, they observed Joan come in and out to prune some plants. Shortly before 2 p.m. Joan came out again and took her daughter and Barbara's son back to the Barkers' house. She told the two she would be back. Around 2:15 p.m., Barbara briefly saw Joan, wearing what she thought was a trench coat over her clothing, move quickly up her driveway, carrying something red with outstretched arms from her car towards the garage. It was the last confirmed time anyone saw Joan Risch. Barbara took Joan's daughter back to her home at 3:40 p.m., believing Joan was still in the house. She left. At 4:15 p.m., Joan's daughter came back to Barbara's house. She told Barbara, "Mommy is gone and the kitchen is covered with red paint." Her brother was crying in his crib because his diaper needed to be changed. After Barbara went to the Risch house herself and verified Joan was not there, she called the police at 4:33 p.m. Sergeant Mike McHugh of the Lincoln Police arrived at the house within 5 minutes. After briefly talking with Barbara Barker, he went into the Risch house. In the kitchen, he found the bloody smears on the walls, an overturned table, and the handset of the telephone ripped loose. McHugh believed Risch might have committed suicide, and searched the house for her body. When he did not find it, he realized he would need backup searching the surrounding area. The police called local hospitals and asked to be notified if a woman matching Risch's description showed up. The Massachusetts State Police called Martin Risch to inform him of the emergency. He changed his plans and caught the next flight back to Boston. In the house, the police found some further clues. For letters delivered that day to the mailbox at the driveway had not yet been brought in. In the kitchen, the telephone directory was found to have been opened to the page where emergency numbers could be written down, although none had been. A few empty beer bottles were found at the scene. Martin Risch could not explain where the bottles might have come from. Joan Risch had left behind the trench coat she had worn to the dentist that morning but appeared to have taken a plainer cloth coat. Also in the house was her pocketbook. In canvassing the neighborhood, police found several other residents who reported possible sightings of Joan after Barbara Barker had last seen her. At 2:45 p.m. that afternoon, a woman wearing clothing similar to Joan's was seen walking headed toward Concord. She appeared to be wandering, hunched over as if she were cold. A similarly dressed woman, with blood running down her legs, was seen walking north on Route 128 between 3:15 p.m. and 3:30 p.m. She, too, seemed disoriented and appeared to be cradling something at her stomach. Although the blood evidence was plentiful, investigators could not conclude from it what might have occurred. Large smears were on the kitchen walls and floor, some were on the phone as well. 3 bloody fingerprints were unidentified. In Joan's absence, they could not be compared with hers. A roll of paper towels was on the floor, one had been used to wipe some blood. Also, a pair of underpants were on the floor. Both were bloodied as well, possibly from an attempt to clean up the blood. Police said later that while the bloodstains in the kitchen might have resulted from a struggle, they seemed more consistent with someone staggering around and trying to support themselves following an injury. But the kitchen was not the only place blood was found. A drop was on the first step of the stairway. 2 more of similar size were found at the top of the stairs, along with 8 in the master bedroom and 1 near a window in the children's bedroom. Another trail of blood led out of the kitchen into the driveway. It ended at Joan's car, which was stained in 3 places: the right rear fender, the left side of the hood, and the trunk. It could not be determined where the bleeding might have started: upstairs, in the kitchen, or the driveway. All possibilities were supported by the evidence. Also, open was the question of whether she left by herself or had been accompanied or even carried, perhaps involuntarily. The end of the trail in the driveway might have indicated that she had gotten into another car at that point, but that was not certain either. What they did not find was also significant. Despite a large amount of blood on the floor, there were no bloody footprints. Whoever had been walking there had either been extremely careful or very fortunate. The blood was found to have been type O, the type Risch was known to have. A state police chemist found that despite appearances of a severe wound, the total bloodshed amounted to merely half a pint, which would not have suggested a life-threatening injury. In the wake of the disappearance, Serene Gerson, a reporter with Lincoln's local newspaper, went to the town's public library to research similar cases as background. In one of the books she looked in, she saw that Joan Risch had checked the book out a month before her disappearance. In another book, about a woman who, like Risch, had left behind blood smears when she went missing, Gerson again found Risch's signature on the checkout card. She reported her findings in the newspaper. A group of volunteers who looked through library records found that Risch had taken out 25 books over the summer, many of which also had to do with murders and missing persons cases. Based on this, people started believing Risch might have staged her own disappearance. Rewards for information were offered by the state police and the town of Lincoln. With no further evidence emerging after the initial investigation, all theories of Risch's fate have remained. The library history and her difficult past have supported the theory that her disappearance was planned as a way to escape a dissatisfying life. But the reported sightings have lent support to a theory that she met an accidental end. One investigator believed that she might have become disoriented and fallen into a pit along the Route 128 construction sites, where she ended up buried when the road was finished. Martin Risch rarely talked about the case in his later years. On one occasion when he had, the Globe reported, he believed his wife was still alive. Martin Risch continued to live in the same house and raise his children. He never had his wife declared legally dead. In 1975, Risch moved to another house nearby and died in 2009. The case remains open to this day. What do you think? Let your comments below and subscribe.